Our next speaker is Professor Sampadananda Mishra, Dean and Culture Professor at Rashram School of Public Leadership. Sampadananda Mishra is passionate about Sanskrit and strongly believes that it has immense potentiality to elevate the human consciousness to sublime heights. Dr. Mishra has spoken at various conferences, seminars, and literary and religious festivals, both nationally and internationally, on Sanskrit, Indian culture, yoga, and education. In addition, Dr. Mishra, a devotee of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, delivers lectures on Sri Aurobindo's philosophy and yoga. For his outstanding contributions to Sanskrit, Dr. Sampadananda Mishra has been conferred the President's Award, Maharshi Badarayana Vyasa Samman by the Government of India in 2011, the Senior Fellowship Award by the Ministry of Culture in 2014, and the Sahitya Academy Award for his book Shanai Shani in 2018. He is also a member of the high-level committee formed by the PM of India for the celebrations of Sri Aurobindo's 150 years. Dr. Sampadananda Mishra will now speak on Sri Aurobindo as philologist. This session is brought to you by Jaipuriya School, Lucknow.
Namaskar to all of you. Thank you, Sandeep Balakrishnan, introducing many polyglots and taking forward another polyglot, Sri Aurobindo. And I'm happy that I'm speaking about Sri Aurobindo, a different dimension of his personality, on the eve of his birthday. So you may be saying, like, how is it? He was born on 15th of August, and tomorrow it is 8th of August. But I'm speaking of another birth date. We all know that he was born on 15th of August, 1872, which was also Shravana Masa, Shukla Paksha, Ekadashi, which is tomorrow. So as per the Indian Tithi, tomorrow is Sri Aurobindo's birthday. And this was proposed by Guruji Golwalkar to the mother to celebrate it on his centenary year, which was accepted by the mother. This is also another news. The second thing, that Sri Aurobindo was a polyglot, that there were so many luminaries who were mentioned here, knowing 10 languages, 15 languages, 22 languages. And how many languages Sri Aurobindo knew? Any guess? 15 languages. 15 languages. And one language, if I add, I don't know, I had read somewhere, A.P. Puran is talking about, he knew also Portuguese. So along with Greek, Latin, Spanish, Italian, Sanskrit, Hindi, Hindustani, Marathi, Gujarati, Bengali, and Tamil. So what I'm going to share with you is a different dimension of his personality. He as a philologist. Many people, while interacting with me here, they asked me the topic that I will be speaking. So the question, many people ask me, what is philology? So philology is the science of language. So the responsibility of a philologist is to look at the history of language, go deep into the history of every component of the language, the words, the different components, and even make comparison. So Sri Aurobindo, in a sense, was one of the greatest philologists. The way he has gone deep into finding out the history of the words. Not only a polyglot, but the scholarship that he had to argue with. Most of the times in academia, people ask me, is Sri Aurobindo an argumentative Indian? Most academicians, they ask this question. I said, read his Renaissance, read most of his works, you will find out. So who can be a better argumentative Indian than Sri Aurobindo? Writing about the philological research part, there was a beautiful article on which he wrote a review in 1916 in Arya, writing the review on Sanskrit research. There was one article written by one Professor Ranade, where he was giving a comparison between Greek and Sanskrit. So if you look, the review of Sri Aurobindo, the way he has written that review with a very fine, constructive criticism, there you can see the high level of scholarship that he had in arguing with the scholars and then presenting and criticizing highly the flaws that the scholarship that had during that time. When we are talking about the history of language, Sri Aurobindo has presented to us, presented to the whole humanity, a new science of language. We had a wonderful talk by Jatayuji yesterday on Subramanya Bharati ji. When Subramanya Bharati ji, VVS Iyer, they were here, they were listening about the Veda from Sri Aurobindo. One day, this has been recorded, one day Subramanya Bharati asked Sri Aurobindo, we all are well trained in the Veda. We know the Veda. How is it that everything that you speak is new to us? And they were all giants of, the Veda, Vedic scholars. So how is it that everything that you speak is new to us? Where from you bring this new interpretation of the Veda? So his simple answer was, Sri Krishna had shown me a new science of language. Mark this word, because he was always guided by the Adesh. Sri Krishna has shown me a new science of language based on which the Vedas, Upanishads, and all our Shastras will be reinterpreted. The true interpretation will happen through this new science of language. But the modern day linguists, philologists, will not accept what Sri Aurobindo has spoken about, because the modern day linguistics or philology, it bases its own research on the formed word, which Sri Aurobindo never did. So it focuses on what Sri Aurobindo says throughout his writings. But then before I go to the real content of it and explain you with examples, so you may ask, where are those articles or where are those writings of Sri Aurobindo? They were not published as a part of the centenary edition, but now it was perhaps the last volume which was published in 2019. So Vedic and Philological Studies. So all these writings were published in the Archival Research Journal much earlier. So based on his writings, this origins of Aryan speech, now the word Aryan, all the languages which fall into the category of Indo-European, during his time, all these languages were called Aryan language. So Aryan and Dravidian language. That's how the philologists, comparative philologists of that time, they divided India based on the language into two, Aryans and Dravidians. And Sri Aurobindo opposes it. So he says either the entire India was Aryas, if at all Aryas and Dravidas existed separately, he said either they were all Dravidians or all Aryans. There was no divide between Aryas and Dravidas, and very different meaning of Arya that we get, because he himself has written the etymology of the word Arya when he was questioned about the title, the Arya Patrika. So, in the philological studies, Vedic and philological studies, the chapter 5 is entirely having all his short writings on origins of Aryan speech and his philological notes. But how did it all start? Sri Aurobindo had no contact with the Veda before he came to Pondicherry. So he had studied all the Upanishads, he had studied Panini, he had studied Jayadev, he had studied Bhartrhari, Kalidas, Bharavi, Magha, almost all important classical poets. But he had no contact with the Veda before he came to Pondicherry. That was also a trend during his time, that it is enough to read the Upanishads and not to study the Veda. If you want to understand India, the philosophy of it, study the Upanishads, not the Veda. So he came in contact with the Veda, and then Veda, as he says, that was a confirmation to his own realizations. Before he turned to the Veda, he already had the realizations of Ila, Saraswati, Mahi, Bharati, and many other Vedic deities, which he himself writes. There is another important thing which we all must know, is that he says, so his acquaintance with Tamil, it triggered something in him to probe deep into the Vedic language. And this is where he formulates his new science of language as it was shown to him by Sri Krishna. So he takes up Greek, Latin, Tamil and Sanskrit. Earlier, but I was studying from the archives, is his handwritten notes, but now it is published in the volume 14, Vedic and Philological Studies. So he puts in this form the Sanskrit words, Greek, Latin and Tamil words, and then makes the comparison. So what is central to Sri Aurobindo's philology is the linguistic embryology that he is speaking of. So what is that linguistic embryology? So he says, like the modern philologists, comparative philologists, they give more importance to the formed words and sound similarity. For example, pita, pater, father. So they will look at all the similar sounding words, especially they start with the family relations. So now they've made a category that, okay, these are all Indo-European languages. These are all artificially created language families. If you follow the root theory that Sri Aurobindo has given, which is central to the linguistic embryology that he is speaking in his Origins of Aryan Speech, so he doesn't take up the sound similarities. He says, look, concentrate on the root sounds, the seed sounds. He gives more importance to the seed sounds. Seed sounds means the fundamental sounds, the basic sounds of a language which one finds in the Varnamala or the alphabet. Starting from A to H, all the characters, Sri Aurobindo goes deep in contemplation to find out, and then he says that every sound here has a guna of its own. Guna means property. If you say sound A, it has many gunas, many properties. Sound A has many gunas. So similarly, A to H, all these 48 characters in Sanskrit, or 46 characters in Sanskrit. If you add some more, also like Ksha, Tra, so it becomes 50. Like Tantra believes in the 50 sounds of the Varnamala. So each character has ranges of fundamental experiences. For example, he says A is absolute state of existence. E is the relative state of existence. U is the pervasive state of existence. And R is the vibrant state of existence. Now, if you look at the way Panini has organized his dhatu patha and the meanings which are given to the dhatus, now for Sri Aurobindo, the sounds, the basic sounds in the Varnamala from A to H are the seed sounds, the seed letters, which are at the source of the entire language. and the combination, different combination. Now, anyone who is little bit of has little bit of familiarity with Panini's Dhatu Patha, we know that Panini has given a list of approximately 2,000 root sounds, approximately 2,000 root sounds, and that's what many people accept as the wealth of root sounds in Sanskrit. And there are some Sautra Dhatus, so which he has mentioned, but they are not part of the list of Dhatu. So maybe like 2,200 Dhatus, that's what is the acceptance in the whole Sanskrit grammatical world. But if you follow Sri Aurobindo's philology, the science of language given to him by Sri Krishna, so it is Ananta. If you follow the principles of the formation of root sounds by the different combinations of the seed sounds, for example, the primary family is all the seed sounds, to her. Then from there you have the primary root sounds. By the combination of like you can combine with ka and then make a root sound ak. Okay. So you can add any other vowel like ik, uk. Then you can nasalize, it forms another group like unk, ink, unk. So in this manner, and then you can have tertiary root sounds. You can add yara, lava, like you can say akya or ankya, then you nasalize it. So all the possible permutations give birth to more than 33,000 root sounds. And Sri Aurobindo says, and these 33,000 root sounds, the primitive Sanskrit language, the original Sanskrit is lost. So according to Sri Aurobindo, when we say that Sanskrit is the mother of all languages, so there is a problem in it when you read Sri Aurobindo. Which Sanskrit then? Is it Vedic Sanskrit? Is it classical Sanskrit? Is it the Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit? Or is it the modern Sanskrit? Which Sanskrit is the mother of all languages? So Sri Aurobindo says that, and he believes, this no other modern philologist will believe. So he believes, like everything in India, languages also have their origin in divine. So he believes in the divine origin of the language, like we believe it came from Shiva's Damaru. It came from Shiva. It came from the divine mother, the Paravak. So it came from the Paradevi, the Adya Shakti. So divine origin of language. Then he says that this original language, now to come to this, if you go to the modern linguistics, they speak about the proto-language. Now, if you accept all the different families of languages, then everyone will have his own proto, like Proto-Dravidian, Proto-Indo-European, and Proto-this, 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 and then there will be one like great-grandmother, great-great-great-grandmother proto. Sri Aurobindo doesn't believe in this artificial division of all the language families, so he believes in the root sounds. So now, he says that Sanskrit as a Deva Bhasha, he calls the original language as Deva Bhasha, a language of divine origin, which was created in one of the Satya Yugas, and there are many Satya Yugas, and each Satya Yuga is like a peak of a mountain. And when you arrive at a peak, another peak is visible, so another Satya, another perfection waiting to be realized. So there is no end to perfection, there is no end to Satya Yuga. So that is what is idea of Yuga. So he says in one of the ages of perfection, this language was given, and this language originated. So it is a language belonging to Satya Yuga, Deva Bhasha, containing more than 33,000 root sounds. And these 33,000 root sounds, they form the basis of all the languages of the world today. And if you take Sri Aurobindo's root theory, I'll give you one example. Say stha is a root sound from which you get the word sthana, sthala, sthapatya, sthapati, and so many other words. So what does stha mean? Like the combination of the sound sa and stha, they lead to the meaning of fixity. Like you say sthanu, a pillar is called sthanu, fixed. A sthana is fixed. You can't say that, oh, this year Pondicherry has moved somewhere else. You don't say that because sthana is fixed. That's why it is called sthana. So if you take any English word beginning with st or ending with st or has st in the middle, you can see this sense of immobility, fixity, rigidity, obstinacy in the word sthana, like stand, station, establishment, exist. All these. So if you know one root sound, you can understand many languages. Similarly, you take the word guru, comes from the root sound gru. Gru means to drench, to sprinkle water, like you get drenched. So anything which gets drenched becomes heavy. So from the sense of getting wet comes the sense of heaviness. So guru is heavy. Like you say, it's a guru syllable. So guru is called guru because of his heavy weight of knowledge. He's a dignified personality because of his dignity. It comes from the root sound gru. Gru has several layers of meanings. So when you analyze all these layers of meaning, ultimately every meaning, all the meanings can be reduced to one single fundamental experience, which is heaviness, density. So analyze any word beginning with gr in English: ground, great, grave, graveyard. Okay, so great. So all these words carry this sense of density, dignity, heaviness, thickness. So this is how the root theory of Sri Aurobindo, and then again coming to the Aryan and Dravidian concept, like how on the basis of language this whole country was divided into two. So he says that the comparative philologists of the modern time, they based their whole research on the formed words, saying that father, mother, and the sound similarity. Sri Aurobindo puts a question that they never asked this question: what was the word for father in Tamil? Appa, right? So is there a root sound in Deva Bhasha which has the connection with Appa? So he says up. Up is the root sound from which you have got the words like apa, means water, which is the source of creation, and apatyam, which is the progeny. So the children are called apatyam. So he takes all these words, apah, apatyam, appa in Tamil, and then concentrates on the root sound up, means to create. So apah, the water is called apah because it is the source of creation. It has the power to create. Apatyam, something which is created. So if Sanskrit has preserved apatyam, something which is created, apaha, which is the source of creation, Tamil has preserved appa, which creates. So if you contemplate on the root sounds, you will find a lot of components in all these languages, which are, even today, if you take Sanskrit and Tamil and Greek and Latin, that was his Sri Aurobindo's research. He says that so what he found out based on the root sounds, that if Sanskrit has lost something, Tamil has preserved. Sanskrit and Tamil, both the languages have lost, and it is preserved in Greek and Latin. Greek and Latin, they have lost. It is preserved in Tamil and Sanskrit. And most of the primitive languages, like Chinese, Lithuanian, Hebrew, so all the primitive languages, they have preserved certain primitiveness and the original senses which the root sounds carried. So Sri Aurobindo's philology says that contemplate on these root sounds, go deep, and then find out all the fundamental experiences behind the root sounds, and then see how what a single word has to offer. So a single word in Sanskrit can have hundreds of meanings. Forget about a word, a single seed sound, a. There is a whole bunch of ekakshara kosha in Sanskrit, around 40 ekakshara koshas which are available to us. Okay, but the names of that, but 32 ekakshara koshas are available in printed form, and some of those are in manuscript form. So if you look at these ekakshara koshas, each ekakshara kosha is offering several meanings. Like you go to ekakshara kosha, you will have 40 different meanings of ka, another 30 different meanings of ka, ki, ku, ke. So each sound has layers of meanings, and these layers of the meanings can be understood only when you contemplate on the seed sounds and the root sounds and the fundamental experiences associated with that. So the same way, Sri Aurobindo has gone deep into the root sounds and then found out the secret of many words, and on the basis of this, he has given to us the secret of the Veda, he has given to us all the Upanishads, he has given to us the Gita, and all the Shastras. Whatever he has interpreted on the basis of this new science of language which was given to him by Sri Krishna. And when we turn to Sri Aurobindo's Secret of the Veda, we find how consistently he has interpreted the meanings of the Veda. This consistency, this coherence is not to be found in many of the traditional interpretations. There's much incoherence in the meaning. For example, like take the word go, simple word go. Anyone would translate it as cow. Go is cow. But how will you translate when you say Goswami Tulsidas? It's very difficult. Can you, if you have this fixed sense cow, Goswami cannot be translated. It will be ridiculous. So go has several layers of meanings. Go means speech, go means indriyas, go means light, go means earth, go means cow, go means sattva, go means purity. Go has several layers of meanings. So where from these meanings come, in order to understand that, we need to go deep into the history of the word, the history of the sound, and the sound combinations. And that is what is the work of a philologist. And this is how Sri Aurobindo has interpreted. For example, like if you turn to Sri Aurobindo's interpretation, just take the first mantra of Rig Veda. So in 20 pages, he explains just one mantra, and especially the word Agni. Every word appearing there. If Agni means fire, why it means fire? What does the word Agni, whatever the word Agni means, it comes from the root sound Ag. Then he takes what does mean, what does Ga mean, what does Na mean, what does E mean, and how the combined meanings of these four components, four sounds, they contribute towards the several layers of meanings that Agni has. And all these things become clear when you study Sri Aurobindo, his Secret of the Veda, his Hymns to the Mystic Fire, and the recent volume which has come, the Vedic and Philological Studies. This in brief is Sri Aurobindo's idea of philology. And then I'll tell you from my personal experience. So I come from a Sanskrit background with Panini, with Amarakosha, and with all the Shastras. And I had no contact with Sri Aurobindo. I could understand Sri Aurobindo easily. Like many people say that, oh, Sri Aurobindo is very difficult. But for me, he was not difficult, he was easy. And my Sanskrit background helped me to understand Sri Aurobindo. And I also realized that after going through Sri Aurobindo, and especially his philological insights from the Veda, Upanishad, and the Gita, whatever I had learned, Kalidas or Jayadev or Bhartruhari or Panini, so it made different sense to me, higher senses, many new insights which just flashed after going to Sri Aurobindo. So both are complementary to each other. So if you have a Sanskrit background, you'll understand Sri Aurobindo better. If you have a background of Sri Aurobindo, you'll understand the Shastras better. And this is where Sri Aurobindo's contribution is extremely important, and especially his contribution to the language. So with these words, I end my sharing. If there are questions, I will address to that. Dhanyavad.
संस्कृतविषये यदि भवान् किमपि कथयति, whether spoken Sanskrit can become a part of as a Rashtra Bhasha for our country?
Yeah, if spoken Sanskrit can become Rashtra Bhasha, Sri Aurobindo, with regard to language, Sri Aurobindo and the mother, both of them, they wanted Sanskrit to be the Rashtra Bhasha. But which Sanskrit? not the Sanskrit that is most popular today in the name of modern Sanskrit. They wanted a simple Sanskrit, and Sri Aurobindo speaks about the Sanskrit of Ramayana and Mahabharata. The Vedic Sanskrit is too difficult to understand, and the classical Sanskrit is too classical to be used in our day-to-day life. So the language of Ramayana and Mahabharata, and one finds the simplicity there. While speaking about Ramayana also, Sri Aurobindo gives importance to the simplicity with which Valmiki has spoken about the characters and the events of the Ramayana age. So it is that simple language of Ramayana and Mahabharata could be the one language that India can speak.
Hello. Thanks a lot for a very insightful session. I just want to know if there is any work being done to use technology to bring more insights into it or to study it in even a better manner.
Yeah, if you wish, like how we have utilized technology to teach the Shastras and teach Sri Aurobindo's writings, and many books, like we have uploaded 300 books to our website. Just visit vmlt.in. So you will find in our library 28,000 books, which you can read or you can do OCR and get the editable version. Or you go to our book section where all the 300 books, like including Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavatam, and many other popular books. So you can click on any sentence to get the grammatical status of the word and the etymology of the word and the dictionary meaning of the word and the contextual meaning of the words. So this is what we have done using the modern day technology and IA to parse the sentences. That's what I can offer. Or you can go to Languagekari application to learn language, Sanskrit spoken language.
Thank you, sir, for the session. As a student and as scholars trying to understand Sri Aurobindo's work, could you share a little more, sir, how we can try to bridge the manifest and unmanifest parts of language?
What do you mean by manifest and unmanifest part of the language? Okay, I got it. Right. When the modern philologists, they give importance to the formed words, the communicative aspect, Sri Aurobindo's philology gives much importance to the creative aspect of it. And this creative aspect of it is entirely in harmony with what the Vedic seers and sages and the Tantric philosophy says about the language, the different grades from Vaikhari to the Para. So from the grossmost to the subtlemost language. So the understanding, the real understanding of any word can happen at the Para level. So one has to transcend the grossmost level and attain to the subtlemost level like a yogi, where the things can be understood in a better way. So better way in the sense like whoever is at the Para level has the Trikala Drishti, has a grand vision where he can see what kind of meanings are reverberating in the word, in the spandan of that. So that's what Sri Aurobindo speaks much in his future poetry when he speaks about mantra, and of course in Secret of the Veda also you'll find, but much of it in the future poetry. So therefore, in order to understand Sri Aurobindo's philology, both in its communicative and the creative aspect, Secret of the Veda, Hymns to the Mystic Fire, Vedic and philological studies, and his future poetry. So all these works have to be studied.
Thank you so much, Sampadananda, for this very insightful talk. My question is related to a more technical thing that you had described, the root word appa, and how he sees the same root in appa, apaha, and apatyam. The only thing which was coming to my mind is with appa and apaha, even if he shows that it comes from this idea of creation that is there in the root word appa, but from the traditional perspective, when we come to the word apatyam, the standing for a negation and patya standing as another word.
Yeah.
So this traditional memory of it being a formation of two different components, how does Sri Aurobindo deal with this perspective?
Yeah. So Sri Aurobindo, most of the times he combines both the tradition and his new theory. I'll give you another example to understand this. So the same word, you can say, for example, Aditi, the word Aditi. Take the word Aditi. In the traditional sense, it will be Aditi. Is a negation. Now you will be amazed to see, and you can understand only when you have you study Sri Aurobindo, why when Krishna says Aksharanam Akarosmi, is the highest sound, the source of everything, has the sense of negation. Because if you add to everything, it negates. Like Rupa becomes Arupa, Brahmana becomes Abrahmana. And if you go to Sri Aurobindo, study carefully, and the Tantra, is Anuttara. Anuttara means like beyond there is nothing. So that brings the sense of negation. So it gives you the sense of transcendence. It gives the sense of negation. So Aditi is no Diti. Diti is the divided consciousness from which the children of Diti are Daityas. And the children of Aditi are Adityas, the gods, Aditi Deva Mata. So there you find the negation. But Sri Aurobindo offers another interpretation of it. He says that it is not the negation, it is from the root sound Ad. Ad means to eat. Then people say like, what? Aditi means eating, but we have our fixed mindset to understand Ad means to eating. Sri Aurobindo says Ad means to swallow, to envelope. So it is the all enveloping consciousness. Okay, Aditi. So the same way he would explain apatyam in both the senses, where and up. But he will rely more on the root sound up. Though up is not a root sound in Panini's Dhatu Pata. The same way pashyati. Sri Aurobindo would derive it from the root sound pash, but the tradition will not accept it because Panini has not enlisted a root sound pash in his Dhatu Pata. So in Panini you will find drish. Then he combines the forms of pash and drish and then offers the solution to the different forms. But Sri Aurobindo would cling to pash. So he'll say pash means to fix. So pashyati, when your vision is fixed, then only the seeing can happen. This is all science. So pashu, someone who is bound. The animal consciousness is the limited consciousness, bound by many limitations. So as long as we are bound by our limitations, we are called pashu. Okay. So pashu, pasha means a noose by which you bind. So Sri Aurobindo's philology would give these kind of solutions relying on the fundamental root sounds and seed sounds and not accept totally what is, but he doesn't reject the tradition, he reconciles it into his system. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sampadananda.